Genesis 19, and I'm going to start with verse 1. Now the two angels came to Sodom in the evening, and Lot was sitting in the gate of Sodom. And when Lot saw them, he rose to meet them, and he bowed down himself with his face toward the ground. And he said, "Hear now, my lords, please turn to your servant's house and spend the night and wash your feet, and then you may rise early in the morning and go on your way." Lot was elevated to a place of honor and respect in a place called Sodom and Gomorrah. And as he sat on the gate, which is often what the custom was at that time for the elders of the city, he saw two angels, catch it for a second, two angels, two heavenly beings. And at this time in history, angels showed up sometimes as men. He saw who they were, servants of God. They came as angels. He recognized them. He wanted them not only to be welcome, but he wanted them to come to his house. I would imagine somewhere in there he wanted to receive the blessings of fellowshipping with the heavenly beings. He wanted to hear what God had to say. But it was also not just that. You see, there were some things that were going on in Sodom and Gomorrah, and he felt like that probably what he should do is usher these heavenly beings who came in the form of men into his house for safety. The word goes on to say, the angel said, "No, we're not going to spend the night. We're going to go over here to the open square." But Lot insisted, and he returned with them to his house. And he made them a feast, and they ate. But before they sat down to eat the feast, the men of the city, old and young men, from every corner of the city, had gathered around the house. And they called out to Lot inside the house. And they wanted to know where were the men that they had seen go into the house with Lot. You see, it was a little bit different than we might think about things, because there were some unusual things going on in Sodom and Gomorrah. There was a lot of homosexuality, but not only was it homosexuality, they were aggressive. It was their practice to rape the men who were traveling through their town. I know it might seem a little strange, and it was, but it was so deviant. It was so accursed that it had come before God, and God had already decided that he was passing judgment and what he was going to do to that particular town. That's why he sent the angels. They wanted to know where were the two men that they brought in with them, and they said that they wanted them to bring them outside so that they could deal with them, so that they could know them carnally, so that they could rape them, basically. And Lot went out to them and tried to reason with them, and he closed the door behind him and he said, "Please, my brothers, please, don't do this. This is wicked. It's an abomination to God. Don't do it." He was pleading with them so much not to perform this wicked act, especially against these two men, that in return for them not touching these men, the angels that were guests in their house, he offered his young virgin daughters to the men. So if you have any daughters, I want you to kind of get his mindset. How much would you have to be in despair in order to offer up your daughters as a sacrifice? And maybe somewhere in there he figured if he could offer the daughters to the men, that maybe they wouldn't attempt to rape the angels, and perhaps if he could avoid that by sacrificing his own daughters, then maybe God wouldn't destroy that particular city. He said, "Please, I have two young daughters." Let me bring them out to you. They haven't been touched by a man. You can do with whatever you want, but just not these men, since this is the very reason why they have come under the shadow of my roof. And the men said, wait a minute, you came here. You're not even really one of us. You came here and you decided to stay, but now you're trying to judge us in our own place, in our own city, in our own town. You know what? We're going to deal with you, Lot, worse than what we were going to deal with those strangers. Catch it. And they circled around Lot, and they were trying to grab his hand, and they pulled him back in the house, and they closed the door behind him. And they said, stand back. And they pressed hard against Lot. But as the men reached out their hands to pull Lot into the house, they were struck. The ones that were at the doorway, they were struck with blindness. All of them. Blindness. The Bible says large and small. They were struck with blindness. And they were stuck in that dimension. What their moral blindness had been touched by the power of God, so that they now had natural blindness, and they were stuck in the dimension of running around trying to find the door, is what the Bible says. They were trying to find the door, but it wasn't just the natural door. It was the door out of that accursed dimension. It was so deviant, it was so foul before God that he left them in their mess. And the men said to Lot, do you have anyone else? The men that were the angels. Do you have anyone else here? Your son-in-laws, your daughters, whomever you have in this city, to take them out of this place. Because we've been sent to destroy this place, and because of the outcry against them has grown great before the face of the Lord, and the Lord has sent us to destroy this city, to destroy this place, to destroy this dimension. Lot went out and he spoke to his son-in-laws who had married his daughters and told him to get up so we can get out of this place, for the Lord will destroy it. But they couldn't hear him. They thought he was joking. They weren't taking him seriously. And I know some of us have seen what God has done at this time, and how he's blessed you to be elevated out of a dark place or a dark situation or some accursed people. And your pleas and your warnings to some of the people that you love that are close by seem to be falling on deaf ears. And see, Lot was in a precarious place because he loved his family. You know, he loved his daughters, and I believe he loved his son-in-law, and he loved his wife, and he was being told to hurry up and get out of this place, to rise above this dimension, to not stay where he was. But he was attached to these people who he loved so much. And when the morning dawned, the angels urged Lot to hurry up. Arise, take your wife, take your daughters, and leave here, unless you be consumed by the punishment of this city. There weren't sufficient righteous people for him to spare that particular city. Whatever you are dealing with, hear me on this morning, that God has called you out of, and your human intellect is trying to rationalize, well, God, if you this and you that, well, you can save this, or you can do that, or you can fix it, or you're trying to find the compromise when he's already given you the door. What he told me was, the whole point of the message was that he didn't even have to spare Lot and his family. His mercy because of what he said and who he was to Abraham was the reason why he remembered Lot. He could have destroyed the whole thing. So while you may be thinking, God, why didn't you do this with this situation or with these people or this circumstance? You may be looking at it backwards. Because of his grace and mercy, he has touched you, opened your eyes. Even though the circumstances or the people in the circumstances may be touched with spiritual blindness, he's opened your eyes so you could be elevated out of that situation and spared from whatever it is that he's doing or about to do with that particular dimension. How many people know what I'm talking about on this morning? On this morning. He said, arise, take your kids. But he lingered. He knew what God was doing, but he was attached to the people that he loved, and the people that he loved weren't getting it. So what God did was he had the angels to grab Lot, his wife, and his daughters by the hand and forcibly snatched them out of the situation. Amen. Snatched them out. Kind of like he's done with some of us. Amen. Some of you sitting in here right now, or sitting out there, have been snatched out of a situation, and even though you know it was God, you might have came out of it kicking and screaming, and you might still be feeling some sort of way in your emotion, and you're trying to figure out, what does it all mean, God? And I know you can do anything, and God, why does it look like this? It's backwards from the way you're supposed to be. Your grace and your mercy, and he's trying to see, open your eyes so you can see the grace and the mercy. Sometimes the situation can be so backwards. It's so backwards until it almost messes with your way of thinking about what's really right. Amen. And some people have been in a situation so long to where it's been so backwards until you almost can't see the door. Amen. And that's why he snatched you out so you could see it right now. They forcibly snatched him out, and they brought him outside the city. And when it came to pass, they brought him outside, and he said, escape with your life. That's what the angel said. And he said, he gave him a very specific instruction. He said, don't look behind you. Don't look back. Or stay anywhere in the plain. In other words, don't look back and don't stay anywhere on the dimension that you've just been elevated from. He said, don't look back and don't stay in that dimension anymore. Don't look back and don't stay in that mindset anymore. Don't look back and stay in the deviant behavior anymore. Don't look back and stay with those people that are operating backwards and outside of what God said is the right way to do it. Amen. Don't look back. Don't look back. And that's what he's saying to most of you on this morning. Don't look back. You can't go back. There's death there. There's destruction there. God's shutting down that dark place, that dimension that you've come out of, the deviant behavior, that thing that was giving you lack and grief. He said, don't look back. And you couldn't understand why your spirit's been grieving for so long. You've been trying to make sense out of something that doesn't make any sense, and your mind's going round and round and round and round. Don't look back to the behavior that you become accustomed to because of what's been around you, but you know it wasn't quite right in the spirit. Don't look back. And not only did he say, don't look back, but I want you to escape to the mountain unless you be destroyed. Go to the higher place. Go to the pinnacle. Go to the center. Go to the penthouse. Go to the place in God. Go before God. Go to the place of peace. Go to the place of rest. Go to the feet of the Master. Go higher. Go to the place that it has for you. That's what he told him. But you know what Lot said? Same thing many of you have said. God was pushing him higher. God was pushing him to the place where he knew he was supposed to go. And Lot knew where he was supposed to go. But Lot pleaded again on God's grace and mercy. And he said, Lord, please, I don't want to go to the mountain top. It's too far. It's too high. Something might happen to me. Something might get me. It's too far to go right now. And he pleaded with God. He pleaded with him not to go that far. He said, "There's another city that's not nearly as far, and it's a closer place, God, to where I am right now. It's not so far, not so deep, not so high in you, God. I don't want to go that far from where I am right now. The mountaintop seems so far away. I have to change so much. I have to change the way I've been operating, the way I've been thinking, the way I've been feeling. You're asking me to give up too much of myself right now, God, but I don't really want to do it. And God, you said I can do anything, God. You said that you're the author and the Alpha, the Omega. You're the author of everything. And God, if you can do anything and you are everything, then God, don't make me go that far. Some of us having that same conversation, even if you're not outwardly praying and inwardly you're thinking it and feeling it. And God, I see where you want me to go, and I see what you brought me out of, and I'm trying not to feel some sort of way about it, but God, you're asking me to give up a lot, and then the people that I love or look like they're going to get stuck, and even if the ones that are right around me don't get stuck, what about the whole city I left behind, and you want to push me to go further? God, it's just too much right now. After all, I'm human. Oh, I know you've been having that conversation with yourself. I'm only human, God. I've gone so far and I waited so long, but I'm going to hold on to this thing right here. I'm not going that far. God, it don't take all of that. Especially for somebody like me, because I've been serving so long and I gave up so much. God, you can't expect me to go that far. He said, all right. He said, okay. You want to go to this little place instead of stretching this far? You only want to go this far. I'm going to put you this far. Instead of you going up here, I'm only raise you up this much, and I'm going to elevate you to a place of safety in me. It's not where I wanted you to be. But I'm going to put you somewhere close. And we're going to call this place Zor. And the literal meaning is insignificant in size. Little place. Small place. So you don't want, I'm going to do something great in you. He said, no, Lord, I don't want to go there yet. Okay, well, let's do something small. Put you in safety. You're not going to be back where you were. I'm going to elevate you, but I'm only going to elevate you a little bit because that's what you want me to do. Anybody in your spirit been pleading with God not to push you too far to the next level because you're tired, because you just went through something, because you just got carried out of something? He trying to show you the mountaintop. I don't want to go all the way up to the top. Let me go to that first stone right there. Not at the bottom, but just a little bit higher than where I was. Anybody been dealing with God that way? Let me flip it. Because if you're hearing my voice on this morning, somewhere in the last few weeks or last couple of months, you prayed to have more God. God, take me higher. I want to hear you more, I want to understand you more, I want to know you more. I want more intimacy, more understanding, more fellowship with you. Then he pulled you out, snatched you around, hit you in the head with a two-piece. Now you're sitting there dizzy. And then he showed you where he wants you to go, and you are reluctant to go quite as far as he wants you to go. And you're justifying it in yourself because of what you already been through. That's where Lot was. God said, okay, that's what you want. That's what I'm going to do. You called it. I'm going to make it happen. I'm going to put you over here. I'm going to call it a small place, just so you know. Verse 23 says, and I'm closing very shortly. The sun had risen upon the earth when Lot entered Zoar. Then the Lord rained down brimstone and fire on Sodom and Gomorrah from the Lord out of the heavens. So he moved Lot to the place called Zoar, which was just a small elevation compared to what he had for him in mind. But he still put him at a place of safety so that he could do what he was going to do to Sodom and Gomorrah. So by grace and mercy, he moved Lot out of the way. He did what he did, and he let Lot see what he was doing to Sodom and Gomorrah. So he's elevated you out of the way, and he's letting you see what he is doing to that foul dimension that he just brought you out of. Whether it's someplace that you work, whether it's some people that you were with, whether it's some family members, whether it's a lifestyle, whether it's a mindset, whether it's a hobby or an interest, whether it's your kids or your parents. It could be any one of those things or a combination. But he's allowing you to see what he is doing to that thing as he's elevated you. So he overthrew those cities, all the plain. In other words, he judged that whole dimension and shut it down. The inhabitants of the cities and what grew on the ground. In other words, when God get ready to cleanse and purge, he going to burn it all up. But it goes on to say, but his wife looked behind him. Wait a minute now. His wife looked behind him. She looked back. Remember what the instruction was. Huh? Look at your left neighbor. Say, what was the instruction? Look at your right neighbor. Say, what was the instruction? He told it was two things. Don't look back. That was clear. Don't look back. And she did look back. And most of y'all know the story. The instant that she looked back and saw that dead dimension that was being burned to the ground, the instant that she tried to go back, the instant that she had a thought of what was behind her, the instant that she was trying to pull that thing back in that they had been delivered from, in that instant, she was reduced to a pile of mineral matter. Salt. He instantly destroyed her. Not even a pile of dust. A pile of salt, because after it's dust, it ain't nothing left but salt. Salt. She became a pillar of salt because she did not follow the instruction. Next verse. Abraham went early in the morning to the place where he had stood before the Lord. And he looked at Sodom and Gomorrah and toward all the land of the plains, and he saw, behold, the smoke of the land, which was lit up like the smoke of a furnace. And it came to pass when God destroyed the cities of the plain. And again, this was the moral of the story. God remembered Abraham and had sent Lot out of the midst of the overthrow when he overthrew the cities in which Lot had dwelt. Now, I know y'all might have came expecting to jump and shout. And I would imagine up to this point, you ain't felt a whole lot to jump and shout about because it was a strong word. However, if you catch the moral of the story, God's love, his grace, his mercy was the fact that he spared Lot from everything else that he was destroying. Now, this is the place where you can jump and shout. You read that whole text again, and everywhere you see Lot, put your name in it. He blessed you. He elevated you. And everything that you see moving forward is because of that blessed place. And everything you get from now on is because he loves you. He remembered you. He's blessing you. He knows you. He understands you. And you do not have to be subject to the place of lack or deviant behavior or destructive behavior or feeling unloved or feeling neglected or feeling taken advantage of or anything else that you've been feeling anymore. The only thing that you must remember when you put your own name in here is don't look back.